Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on this. We all know that small businesses and entrepreneurs are what drive the American economy. We meet them in our districts, and we see firsthand the benefits that their dreams and hard work provide to our constituents and to our communities. These investors, entrepreneurs, and risk takers are really small business people, which are critical for our country's economic prosperity. Small businesses help create more than 60% of the nation's net new jobs over the past 2 decades. 60% of all the net new jobs in the past 2 decades. So that if our nation is going to have an economy that provides opportunities for every American, then we must promote and encourage the success and growth of our small businesses and our startups. In order to succeed, these companies need capital and the lifeblood for growth, expansion, and job creation. Yet the government continues to construct arbitrary walls that cut them off from essential financing as smaller companies are caught in red tape, created, frankly, to be applied to the largest public companies. But those public companies have the financial means to hire lawyers and accountants and management consultants and all those things that would then guide them through the sheer weight, volume, and complexity of the federal securities laws. Congress has made strides in tailoring regulatory environment for smaller companies, most notably when we passed with strong bipartisan support the Jumpstart Our Business Startups, or JOBS Act, in 2012. The JOBS Act's benefits are notable as more and more companies use its provisions to raise investment capital in both the public and private markets. One essential form of capital for many startups comes from angel investors, sophisticated, high-net-worth individuals who invest their own money into startups and other early-stage companies. Not many college students that I'm aware of would fit that definition of a sophisticated, high-net-worth individual. In 2015, angel investors deployed over $24 billion to about 71,000 startups, many of these investments going to companies in their own communities and states. Beyond capital, angels provide advice and guidance to help these companies succeed and create jobs. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it's important to note that companies such as Amazon, Costco, Facebook, Google, and Starbucks, along with a whole myriad of others that we have not necessarily heard of as public names, were all initially funded by angel investors. Without angel investors, these very successful companies would have never gotten off the ground. Yet the Securities and Exchange Commission, whose neglect of its statutory mission to facilitate capital formation necessitates Congress passed the JOBS Act in the first place, has further restricted startups from interacting with angel investors at demo days and similar pitch events. Startups rely on demo days and similar events to build relationships with angel investors and other investors to generate interest in their company and their idea. These events existed prior to the JOBS Act, but the SEC rules jeopardized their future. H.R. 79, the Helping Angels Lead Our Startups, or HALOS Act, is a common-sense, bipartisan bill aimed at removing a significant regulatory hurdle for innovative companies and startups seeking early-stage equity investments. Specifically, the HALOS Act would clarify that these demo days sponsored by angel investor groups, universities, municipalities, and nonprofits are considered general solicitations and would are not considered, general solicitations, and would instead ensure that angel funding remains available to those businesses seeking investment capital. These are really educational opportunities. Mr. Speaker, some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle will claim that the HALOS Act guts critical investor protections and it will subject honest, hardworking Americans to rampant fraud. We just had an example of college students being brought out. That's simply not true. A company that offers securities to investors under these rules may only sell their securities to sophisticated or, quote, accredited, end quote, investors. These individuals do not meet the standards of an accredited investor. They are not then eligible or even allowed to invest in these types of startups that would participate in a demo day. Instead of the HALOS Act is a simple, bipartisan, bicameral, and I might add a short bill that will provide small, innovative companies and startups the ability to interact with angels and other investors who can provide the capital that they need to succeed, grow, and create jobs. Indeed, Senator Murphy of Connecticut said it best when he introduced the HALOS Act last Congress, and I quote, "I've heard from local entrepreneurs and interested backers alike that the most important thing we can do to help these businesses is to make it easier for angel investors to put capital behind them."
Yielded an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that's exactly what our bipartisan HALOS Act will do. That was Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. I commend the efforts of Representatives Shabbat and Sinema and working together across the aisle on bipartisan positive solution. Excuse me. And last Congress, the HALOS Act passed this very body with an overwhelming bipartisan vote of 325 to 89. And I have high hopes for that H.R. 79 will enjoy another strong bipartisan vote. And I encourage all of my colleagues to support its adoption.